Hey everyone. Today I'm going to be talking about using the Charlotte Mason method in high school, which I know can be very nerve-wracking for a lot of families. So I just want to give a couple seconds here for people to hop on. I running a few minutes late today. It was, I feel like it's always something at our house. Maybe it's just my family, but I don't know if anybody else can relate. Let me know, because I feel like there's just always something that comes up in our lives. So today I was taking my daughters to art camp, and I go outside, and my husband took my car for work. We share the bigger kind of car. Sometimes he uses it for work, and he left me the little car. Hey, Amy, welcome. He left me the little car, but he didn't leave me the keys. So of course, we're running late. We're supposed to be at the art camp by 9:30. It's already 9:15, and I don't have any keys. And we do have an extra set, but my teenage daughter likes to use the little car, as we call it. So she was at a sleepover. Good morning, Patricia. And I knew by the time I got a hold of her and woke her up and she drove to my house, art camp would be over. So praise the Lord. I have awesome neighbors. So my neighbor let me borrow her car so I could drive my kids to art camp today. So that's why I'm running a few minutes late. It's just, I feel like I plan everything out and then just something always happens. Is it just me, or does that happen to you guys? I hope it's not just me. Anyway, that's not what I'm here to talk about today. So today we're going to talk about homeschooling in high school. Dun, dun, dun. So just to give you a little info into my family. Oh, I should probably tell you who I am in case you're new or somebody shared this with you. I'm Julie Ross. I'm the creator of A Gentle Feast, a Charlotte Mason curriculum for the entire family. And so, hi, Courtney. Courtney, you're so sweet to watch this and help me at the same time. So I'm glad you're here. So when my oldest daughter was 3 or 4, we were in a Bible study. And the girls that kept the nursery were homeschool kids. So it was like a homeschool co-op. But one of the rotations or classes or something was to help keep kids in the nursery. And I just remember I loved that those girls were so articulate. They were so kind. They weren't like other teenage girls that I had met through teaching and whatnot. And so I was like, this is the kind of girls. Good morning, Leah. Welcome. It's good to see you here. These were the kind of girls that I wanted my daughters to be. I wanted my daughters to be like these teenage girls. And so I said to my husband, hey, I think I want to homeschool our oldest child. And he was like, you want to do what? And so it took a little while for me to kind of explain what homeschooling was. It was back in the day where he didn't even have a concept of that or knew anybody who homeschooled. And he's like, okay, you can homeschool our kids. He's like, I guess because you have a teaching degree, you might know what you're doing. You went to school for 4 years for this. I guess you can homeschool our kids. But I really want them to go to public high school. So the plan had always been that we would homeschool our kids up until high school, and then they would go off to school. Well, through a variety of life circumstances and things, that didn't happen. And I'm actually been homeschooling them through high school now. And actually it's been an amazing blessing. And so I'm so glad. That was never my intention. I always wanted to homeschool all the way through, but that was the kind of the arrangement that we had come to as a couple. And I think in his mind, it was really, you can homeschool them when they're young, but I really want them to go to college and university and get a good job and, all those fears that our culture kind of has in it. And I'm not really sure if homeschooling can do that. So I'll let you do that for a little bit. But then when they're in high school, they have to go to real school was kind of some of the mentality there. And just seeing them grow in their knowledge as high school students and the things that they're able to do. I think he's really been able to see that there's a lot of value in continuing to homeschool through high school. So I have a daughter who will be a senior next year. I know, it's so sad. And this is the 4-year-old I was talking about that it was in that Bible study that I asked him if I could homeschool. And it goes like this, people. I know, like, people used to always say that to me, and I had 3 kids under the age of 3, and they were all like crying at one time. Like, literally, I had one of those double strollers, and then I had a baby in the front pack, and people at the grocery store would be like, oh, it goes so fast. I'm like, I want it to go fast. You realize I haven't slept in like 3 years, people. But now that I'm on the other side, I understand what they're coming from, right? The days are long, but the years are fast. And you blink and you're looking at colleges now, and it's like, what? How did that even happen? And then I have another daughter who will be in 10th grade next year. We keep going back and forth. She had wanted to graduate high school early, and so she took a lot of high school classes in 8th grade. And so I was just calling her like a 9th grader then for simplicity's sake. But now she's decided that she wants to get a soccer scholarship. And so she really wants to spend more time playing soccer. And so now she's going to be a 10th grader next year. So anyway, if you've heard me say different things about that child, that's why. but age-wise, she should be in 10th grade next year. And just to give you a little insight into them, one of the things I love about homeschooling teenagers is the time that it gives them to explore other interests and just experience the real world other than just school. You know, because they're not in school all day long. And here, our public high school starts at 8:30 in the morning, and it doesn't end till 4. And so that's a long time to be gone and to be in school. And that really limits what they can do outside of school. So, but because we homeschool, my daughters are able to do a lot more different things. So my daughter, who's a senior, she does cheerleading for our homeschool sports teams. She also works like 25 hours a week at Chick-fil-A, which is awesome because she gets a discount. She gets a discount on her own food, but every once in a while she'll bring me home some fries. And I love me some Chick-fil-A. Anybody else? Gonna get an amen. All right. And but working at Chick-fil-A has been an awesome experience. She's training to be a manager, and she's, you know, in the real world, learning what it takes to earn money, to work with customers, to have a boss, you know, all this experience that you can't get from a textbook. She also works part-time. So she has several part-time jobs. One of her other part-time jobs is she works for a photographer. And I'll talk about photography in a second. And then she also is the social media marketer for our Homeschool Sports League up here. And that's a volunteer position. It's not paid, but it's great real world experience. So no matter what classes she takes in the future, what kind of job she ends up getting, right? Social media marketing you just need that all over the place these days. So, so she's learning really valuable life skills also with her classes. So because she's a senior next year and she has met a lot of her high school requirements, she is going to take classes at our local community college. And that flexible schedule really helps with all these different things she's passionate about. And the other thing I really like about homeschooling in high school, especially with the Charlotte Mason method, is you're still giving them this wide feast. So in high school, a lot of time we try to like pigeonhole kids into, okay, you want to get a degree in this, you got to take classes in this. And you're really gifted at this and you're going to do this. Or maybe you're in a technical program and you're like focused on getting those training skills. And they miss this generous and wide feast, right? And they might be really super awesome at chemistry, but they're not becoming these well-rounded person that Charlotte Mason talks about. And so I love that my kids have had exposure to these variety of different things. And so one of the things that my senior has become really interested in is photography. And so talk about like handicrafts, right? So it's cool to see your older kids kind of like choose what they want to do and what they're interested in. And so, gosh, this was about 3 years ago, she decided she wanted to learn how to take really good pictures. So for Christmas, all the grandparents and we all went in and got her like a really nice camera, and I bought her some online courses in photography and also a class in Photoshop. And so she I mean, she did all that on her own time. That's the other thing about the beauty of the Charlotte Mason method in high school. You know, you're talking 4.5 hours of school, and so of lesson time. So that gives them a lot more time to do these interests as well as, you know, work and get these life skills. But so she learned how to do photography all on her own, went out there, practiced. And so, you know, now she's getting paid. She made a ton of money doing people's senior pictures. She built her own website. I didn't teach her how to build the website. Like, she just went on YouTube and watched a bunch of videos and figured out how to do it. So I'll link to her website, but it's just, to me, it's really cool to see them grow in these things, becoming more of just who God created them to be in their different giftings. It really comes out in high school, and it really comes out when they're homeschooled in high school and they have the time and they have been exposed to this large feast. You know, the famous Charlotte Mason quote, it's not how much the student knows, but how much the student cares and how large the room is that his feet are set in. And so we're giving our kids this large room, and we don't know how God is going to use it and how these different things that they've learned to love and appreciate are going to come out. And so it's really neat as they become their own adults to kind of see these different things come out. And then my daughter, who's going to be in 10th grade, you know, like I said, she's really super into soccer. And I think in our culture, we can really be, well, I don't know about everywhere in America. I live in the South. So in the South, like, sports are a super big deal. So, I mean, people can go crazy. And if you have a kid who's naturally gifted in one sport, it seems like all of this family's time is centered around that one child in that one sport. You know, we know people whose kids are 6 and 7 and they're gone every night of the week, and they're gone every weekend traveling around playing baseball. And so it really was something we had to be very prayerful about. Like, we want to encourage her in this area. We see a lot of gifting in this area, but this can't be the be all end all, right? We do want that well-rounded person. And so it has to be time for these other things as well. And so even though she's wants to get a scholarship in soccer, right, we're still not like, okay, you can spend every free waking moment you have playing soccer. No, like, we still want to be exposed to these other things. So she plays the drums for the worship band at our church. And, you know, she'll spend her free time practicing her drums and that musical part. She also is really into hand lettering. So that was about like a year ago for her handicraft. She said, Mom, I want to learn how to do like the calligraphy stuff. And so I just bought her online. I can't even remember. I'll have to ask her. But I mean, it was like $30, some online hand lettering class. And she taught herself how to do hand lettering. And she's actually making some things for me now for this little planner that I'm making for to go along with the curriculum, like if someone just wants a printed planner. So she's making all the term signs and the cover and stuff, and, you know, just want to encourage her in that. And she makes little cards that she sells to raise money for the missions trip she's going on. And so, again, it's those, like, the handicrafts aren't just like, you know, something you make out of macaroni that you're going to throw away, right? You're teaching them how to make and do things that are creative, that are actually skills that can actually bless people and can be used later on, which is super cool. So anyway, so I didn't mean to go that long about my own kids, but I'm just trying to show you that, like, there is a lot of value to homeschooling in high school. And so Amy says they're not allowed to play homeschool sports. Oh, I'm sorry. That's hard. Yeah, that would be really hard. We're really blessed here. We could play for the public school if we want to in South Carolina, but we also have a huge sports league of only homeschoolers. I mean, huge. And they have every sport from like archery to like shooting to football and cheerleading and everything in between. And so, and they go to state championships. I mean, it's really big. So we're very, very blessed to have that kind of sports program up here. But yeah, I know for some high school kids that can be really a big deal of whether or not to homeschool. And Patricia, yeah, I'll share the classes that we bought for my daughter. They're really awesome. So, okay, so one of the things I often hear about homeschooling in high school or homeschooling with the Charlotte Mason method in high school is this rigorous enough? Is it going to prepare them for college? Is it going to help them on the SAT? You know, you hear all these questions, kind of like, you know, the fear that my husband had, like, okay, this is really cute and all, and I'm glad y'all are out there in nature and the kids have time to play, you know, and you're teaching them how to sew and you're reading these great books. But, you know, at some point here, like, we got to get like really serious. And it just makes me laugh when I hear stuff like that because, like, if you look at what a high school student using the Charlotte Mason method is reading, it's just kind of mind blowing. So I'm going to try to lift these up and show you. So just hold on one second. All right, so I wanted to show you so this is what my 10th grader will be using next year as part of the Blue Year. So this, can you all see that? So this is half the stack. Let me go get the other half. So this is chemistry and her literature and her geography books are in here. Okay, hold on one second. Let me get the other half. Oh goodness, I just dropped the ball. Ah! Okay, and then here's the the other half of her books, right? So it's this ginormous stack of books that, you know, are written for adults. And so it's, I laugh when people say, is it rigorous enough? Because, I mean, look at that stack of books, it was Jimmy Fallon. Yeah, it was Jimmy Fallon. Did you all see that? Jimmy Fallon did this video where he went, you know, he goes on the streets and he asks people these questions. And he went on the streets and he asked people to name a book. And of course, it's edited to be funny. I'm sure there were people that answered correctly. But he just, you know, the only people that are in his video clip are the people that were like, you know, they couldn't like think of a book at all. Or they would name like a movie. And the one lady was like, can I give you the name of a magazine? And one guy was like, I think the last book I read was Green Eggs and Ham, you know, and the purpose is to be funny, but it really just kind of showed. Yeah, Courtney, you saw that? I showed my kids and they were like, they can't name a book? Like, what's wrong with these people? I can name like 5 I just read today. And, you know, but in our culture, I think it's 1 in 4 Americans read a book last year. So adult Americans, you know. And so when you think about the, just the level of books that a student in a Charlotte Mason education is reading in high school, it really is phenomenal. So hold on one second. Hey, Laura, welcome. I'm glad you're here. And I'd love for you to pop on sometimes too if someone has a question. Laura are all your kids graduated now or just the older 2? But she has high schoolers as well. And then Lauren, I know, can you believe it? Your baby just wakes up one day and poof, they're teenagers. It's amazing. And so anyway, I think really if someone looked at what a student in the Charlotte Mason method was using in high school, they would realize it is extremely rigorous. It is extremely challenging, right? It's different, right? We're not giving them a stack of workbooks and be like, okay, at the end of the year, I want you to give these all back to me filled in and I'm going to check them off, right? So it's different than what we're used to giving students in high school. So it can kind of take some explanation and some thinking about, but it's still extremely rigorous. The other thing that I think it's important to consider when you're high schoolers, when you're homeschooling your high schoolers, is to think about what am I preparing them for? So most people are like, I'm educating my child at home so I can prepare them for college. I can prepare them to get a really good score on the SAT. I've heard that as well. And Charlotte Mason kind of has a different reason, right? That we're preparing our kids for life. And so, you know, some people view education as a means to an end. The end is getting into this college, right? And what we do is a means to that. Or is education the end in itself? Is the value, the love of knowledge, and the, like I said before, the large room that we're sending our children in and preparing them for life. It was interesting the other day on our like local Facebook group, this lady posted a question. Hold on one second. And I mean, you could tell she was very stressed. She had a lot of different questions. But the one that stuck out, a few things stuck out in my mind with her question was, she said, my child's behind. I'm going to homeschool them for the first time next year, and I don't know what to do to get them caught up. What curriculum is out there that's best going to prepare my child for college? And she had a whole bunch of other questions. And then one of the commenters said, well, how old is your child? Because she didn't say that in the thing, you know. And her child was 4. And she already was like, my child's behind, and I need to get my child ready for college. What do I need to do? I'm going to homeschool them, and what do I need to do? And it was like, I didn't respond to her Facebook message because I probably could have written a paper. But, you know, my blood was like, oh. But it showed me, and I hear it often, of this mentality of kids are behind because we have these, you know, set standards of kids should know this by the time they're 4. I'm like, what are they should be behind in? Like tying her shoes? I don't really know. Not even tying her shoes. My kids were like 8 by the time they tied their shoes. Coloring in the lines, playing with Play-Doh. Like, what is a 4-year-old, what would they be behind in? But, you know, we have these set standards. And so we get this pressure and this anxiety that our children are behind, apparently really early now. And then we get this mentality of like, what do I need to do to reach this end? And really that goes against Charlotte Mason's first principle that children are born persons. They're persons. They're not machines. It's not plug this in and out comes this, right? Which is what our whole kind of educational system is modeled upon these days. You know, if the teacher gives them this information and drills them in it, and then they can spit it back out on a test, right? We're input, output. And that's a whole mechanical process, and that's not what our students are. So we're inspiring a whole person, a soul, right? A person who has their own interests and personalities. And so we need to keep that in mind. Even our teenagers are persons too. Yes. Yeah, totally feel like we're pushing too soon. Yeah, I totally understand that too. Oh, Patricia, I love that. Yesterday, someone asked her 14-year-old what she wanted to be when she grew up, and she said happy. Oh, that's so precious. I love that. Yeah, totally that whole person mentality there. So I'm going to read several quotes from Charlotte Mason here because I really think it's important to read what she has to say. So this is from Volume 6, A Philosophy of Education, and this is in the introduction. She says, the people themselves begin to understand and to clamor for an education which shall qualify their children for life rather than for earning a living. As a matter of fact, it is the man who has read and thought on many subjects who is, with the necessary training, the most capable, whether in handling tools, drawing plans, or keeping books. The more of a person we succeed in making a child, the better he will be, both to fulfill his own life and to serve society. Whoa! Mind blown. Okay, I'm going to link to this quote because, like, it's just something you got to read over. Oh, Laura said she has one left at home entering 9th grade. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, that's what I thought. You know, we're preparing them for life, not for earning a living. And those are two completely different things. And she said, even, you know, a man who has read many books and who's thought about many different things, that wide feast, with the necessary training, they're going to be really good at handling tools, drawing plans, keeping books, no matter what career path they end up being. And we all know, like, career paths go like this, right? I mean, I don't know how many of you or your spouse, like, knew what they wanted to be, went to college for that, and has kept that same job their whole life, right? I mean, that's what my dad did. Like, my dad had the same job for 35 years. But in today's society, like, people are just constantly changing jobs. Jobs are constantly changing. The expectations for the jobs are changing. And so if you're a person who has this wide feast, you can learn these different things, but you're still a well-rounded and knowledgeable person. So, yeah, I was just reading the quotes there. So anyway, I love that quote. I'll send that to you. Then I also linked to another post that I thought was really good by Art Middlecroft from Charlotte Mason Poetry. And so he was talking about the SAT. And I mean, Wait, people hear that word, it's like, you know. And it really is sad that so much rides on that one test. It really does. And so that's what causes that anxiety in people. Here in South Carolina, for my daughter to get a really significant college scholarship, which would really help us out financially, like she has to have this certain score on the SAT. So it's not like a negotiable, maybe we could take it or maybe we won't, or, like you have to take it, right? And so in his article, he was talking about his experience with the SAT with his son, who wanted to go to a really well-respected mechanical science, mathematics kind of university, and needed to get a very, very high score in order to get into that school and to get the scholarship that they needed. And so, he talks about how, the first time his son took it, he did not do very well on it, and he was crushed. He felt like, have the methods failed? They use the Charlotte Mason, obviously he writes for the blog, but have these methods failed? Have I been doing it wrong? Have I failed? And I think as homeschool moms, the reason we get so scared in high school is because we feel like it's all on us, right? If my child doesn't get into college, or they get to college and they don't know what they're doing, or they don't get a good score on the SAT, who are we going to be looking at here, right? I'm the one that's had them for, however many years you've been homeschooling them. And so it's on me. And that is a ton of pressure. And it can create so much fear and anxiety. And like Charlotte Mason talks about, that education is an atmosphere. And when the atmosphere of your home is filled with tension and anxiety and trying to perform, like your kids pick up on that, right? Especially teenagers. They're not dumb. They feel that atmosphere. It's in that air that we breathe, and even if we don't even see it. And so it's really important, and I just really encourage you to kind of think through these things and pray through them. Talk to your spouse about them and say, what are we preparing our child for? What is our goal here? And so anyway, back to Art's story, he was saying that they ended up hiring an SAT tutor, and his son took the test 3 more times, and his score went up 500 points, which is like red flag. Somebody must have been cheating. I mean, it's like nobody can boost their SAT score that much. And one of the things he said in the article that just struck me so much was, I could have spent 15 years preparing my child for life. Wait, I could have spent 15 years preparing my child for a test and 5 months preparing them for life, but rather I chose to spend 15 years preparing them for life and 5 months preparing them for a test. So, him and his son did this tutoring for like 5 months, and his score went up that much. And so he's like, we spent 5 months preparing for this test, but my child spent 15 years being prepared for life. And that's what I want. I don't want it to all be about a test. I don't want it to all be about where you're going to go to college. I want it to be about preparing them for life. And then if we do need to prepare them for a test, because we do, let's all be honest, right? We have to. You don't need to spend years doing it. In 5 months, he was able to boost his score that much. And so my daughter is going to an SAT tutor. I just recommend, like, your junior or senior kids year, you're probably going to need to do that, budget that. And she told me, she tells the kids that the SAT is an evil test created by evil people to trick children. I'm like, great. I'm so glad we get to take that. But it just made me laugh. And she said the reason she says that is because it really is meant to weed out the very top number of kids who are going to score extremely well on it. And so the questions really are tricky in order to, it's not just a test of what a kid knows. It's not a mastery test. It's really tricky to get out that few high scores. And so what she does, and what many SAT, ACT tutors do, is teach them the tricks. They're learning tricks so they can get a good score on this test. They're not getting knowledge. Their souls aren't being nourished and fed by preparing for this, right? It's just teaching them those tricks. And so that was just kind of eye-opening for me, because we put so much stock in this as the be-all, end-all. Oh, another thing she said, so my daughter took both the SAT and the ACT. just to kind of see like which one she naturally did better on. And then I'm like, okay, we'll pay for a tutor to tutor you in the one that you naturally did better on, rather than trying to like do both tests. And so she actually did better on the SAT English. Her math on both was, but she did really well on the SAT English. Like her score could stay where it is. And now they do a composite score. They'll take your best English and your best math from a variety of tests, no matter how many times you took it, and put those two together. That's what the colleges will look at now, which I wish they would have done that when I was in school. But that's another story. So her SAT English was really high, but she didn't like the ACT English at all. And so I told the tutor that, and she said, well, that's really interesting. And I said, well, why do you say that? And she said, well, most students like the ACT English better. And the reason is because, they read passages and then they answer the questions about them. And she said, most kids like that better because they're used to that. They've done that for years in school. And the answers are right in the text. All they have to do is go back in the text and they can find the answers on the ACT. She said the SAT is a lot of English, is a lot of higher level thinking and reasoning skills. And so they can't just go back and find the answer to the question. But they do have to cite, there's like little numbers on the side. They do have to cite where in the text they got the evidence to support their thinking, right? And so that was really interesting to me when the tutor said that. I was like, well, of course she liked that better, right? She's used to reading and thinking about it and talking about it and, all these things that we do in the Charlotte Mason method. So I just wanted to encourage you that as well. Another thing I think that we fear in high school is we fear the need that we have to fit it all in, right? Okay. We only have 4 more years, and we have to fit all this huge body of knowledge into my child's brain in the next 4 years. And we can get super stressed about that. And in that, so in a philosophy of education, she talks about continuation schools. I don't really know what those are. I Googled them and tried to find it, and I couldn't find anything. So Leah Bowden, if you're still on here, you might know more about it from being in England. I don't know. But what I could gather from the chapter on these continuation schools was it was for high school level children, but that they would be working and then doing these schools because she talks about how they would only have these students for 8 hours a week. And as we all know, like that's way less time than we have with our kids, right? And so she said that, well, let me just read what she said about the kind of philosophy. And maybe this was just something they were talking about doing in England at the time. I'm not really sure. But she said, with the best will in the world to give boys and girls something on which to chew the cud, real mind stuff for digestion and assimilation, we find that the floodgates are opened. An ocean of things good to know overwhelm us. And we have 8 hours a week. So she's not like, we only have 8 hours a week. What are we possibly going to teach these kids? And that's why I just love her. She's like, look at the possibilities. The floodgates of knowledge can be open because we have 8 hours a week with these teenagers. We seize on that blessed word compromise, and we see 2 possibilities. Okay, so the 2 possibilities are, we only have them for 8 hours a week. What are we going to do in these 8 hours to prepare these high school age students for the world who are working and they're not in school all the time, okay? She says, now, good citizens must have sound opinions about law, duty, work, wages, whatnot. So we pour opinions into the young people. Pouring it into them, right? From the lips of a lecturer or a teacher, his opinions, which they are intended to take as theirs. In the next place, there is so much to be learned that a selection must be made. The teacher makes this selection, like what's important, what needs to be learned, right? And the young people are poured into like a bucket, which, says Carlyle, is not exhilarating to any soul. So again, it's that mentality that we still see today, right? We're going to pour and stuff as much as we possibly can into their mouths. And when, Charlotte Mason talks a lot about a feast, and so that's why I named my curriculum a gentle feast. It's gentle in the fact that we're laying it out. We're laying out this generous curriculum, and we're gently bringing our students to it. We're not forcing the stuff down their throats. And so she says, some ground is covered. Teachers and authorities are satisfied. We did our job. We covered what we had to cover. And if, when the time comes, the young people leave school discontented and uneasy, if their work bored them and their leisure time bored them, if their pleasures are mean and meager, and if they become men and women rather eager than otherwise for the excitement of a strike, that is because we have failed them. And then the other alternative she talks about are her methods, which she goes into, and they're the same methods that she would use if she had the students for 6 days a week, like her schools were set up to be. So she's like, it doesn't matter if I only have them for 8 hours a week. It doesn't matter if I have them for 6 days in a week. The methods of teaching children are the same. And so I just think that's so fascinating when you think of like people who are stressed that, oh, it's high school, we got to throw this in, right? It's taking that mentality that she was talking about, or trying to force feed everyone it, and how it will leave them bored and discontented. They won't have, and I think it's interesting too, she even said they would be bored in their leisure time, right? So we talk about this wide feast, that they don't know how to properly rest, and that their pleasures are mean and meager. They don't take pleasure in music and art and the things that they would if they would use her methods. And so the methods that she goes on to explain are the same methods that she used in all of her programs. And she also says, let me see, where is it? Okay, that, so she gave an example, this is on page 294, of, she listed 213 proper nouns that a girl of 13 used in her examination papers. So Charlotte Mason gave end of term exams, and they're just extended narrations. She does talk, though, if you read the chapter in here on secondary education, she does talk about how vital those exams are. So they're getting the narration, they're learning it every day, but they need those exams, especially in the high school years, to kind of cement everything that they've kind of learned and processed and make those connections in their brain even deeper. So she lists on these pages, it'll be backwards, I think, because I don't know how to fix it on my computer, but so here's a list of all these names that a 13-year-old used on their end of term exam. I don't even know what some of these are. I'm just going to be honest. I mean, some of these might be countries that are called something else by now, but okay, I'm just going to read you the A's. So these are nouns that a 13-year-old used on their exam in Charlotte Mason education. Amasia, Ariel, Ayrshire, Arcot, America, Austrian Army, Artemidorus, Antium, Aphidius, Auditors, Apollotheus, Altai Mountains. I don't even know where those are. Aswan, Africa, Atabara, Anuluza, Araconadia, Armadillo, Albumen, Abdomen, Ericles, Angle, and Arc. Okay, like I have advanced degrees and I'm like, I know probably 5 of those. So, but she was saying, even for this continuation school, that, you know, they might be able to only know a fraction of these names that a girl using her whole program would know. But still, they would know a fraction. If I knew a fraction of these names, I would be like way smarter than I am right now. So again, it's the point of offering this large feast. No matter how much time we have, it needs to be a large feast, that we're still preparing them to be these well-rounded people. So like I said, her methods do not change in high school. The same methods, the same principles that you've used all along, they stay the same. Our goal for education does not change. And let me read to you what she says that is. Is this volume 6? Yes, still volume 6. Okay. I'm still on volume 6 here. This is page 267. Children so taught, using this wide and generous feast she talks about, children so taught are delightful companions because they have large interests and worthy thoughts. They have much to talk about, and such casual talk benefits society. The fine sense, like an atmosphere of things worth knowing and worth living for. This it is which produces magnanimous citizens, and we feel that Milton was right in claiming magnanimity is the proper outcome of education. So the proper outcome, and if you guys did the Green Year, you know who Milton is. He was one of the poets studied in that year. That the goal, the outcome, the proper outcome of education is I never can say that word right. Being magnanimous. I can say that one better. Being magnanimous. So what does that mean? So I looked it up in the dictionary. It means that they're high-minded, they're generous, they're noble, they're people of courage, people of strong character, and that they have the virtue of a great heart in mind. That's the goal of education, right? And so how do we use her methods in high school? What, again, same things, but it's just good to refresh them sometimes. So what are we looking at here? So the first thing that does not change are the timetables. So, I mean, you can look these up. I give some kind of sample schedules in the Gentle Feast, if you have that, but if you don't, you can find these online. That even in high school, those short lessons are extremely important. The longest lesson in high school is 45 minutes. Most of them are still about 30 minutes long. And that enables you to get things through much faster. And you're like, well, that's not long enough time. You know, in order to get a credit, it should be an hour, right? But when you think about all the little things that they're doing that add up and into that, and even as a teacher, hey, you're welcome, Sarah. Yeah, I know I'm talking a long time here. I probably need to stop. I'm going to stop soon and do a part 2 because I could talk forever about this. But no, I forgot what I was saying. But the timetables, right? You know, when you think about 45 minutes, I used to be a classroom teacher. I mean, a lot of time is spent taking attendance, checking homework, calling roll. People got to go to the bathroom. People got to go to drink. I got to hear a story of what Timmy did last night. You got to wait for so-and-so to answer the question. You got to hear from a variety of people. Whereas, you know, in Charlotte Mason method, the kid is reading and narrating themselves. And so that goes so much faster. And that's what enables you to cover all of those books that I showed you in 1 year, right? To cover all these variety of subjects. So I was going to read you a little bit from what she says here again in volume 6, and we'll kind of pull out some of those principal methods that she teaches. Every teacher knows a class will occupy itself diligently by the hour and accomplish nothing, even though the boys think they have been reading. So, this was my experience too. But they're actually doing nothing. They're actually not doing what they're supposed to be doing. We all know how ill we can stand in an examination on daily papers over which we pore. Details fail us. We can say, did you see such and such an article? Or did you see that Facebook post? But we are not able to outline its contents. Okay, I have to admit, that's me a lot of times. I know I read about that, but I can't remember any of the details. We try to remedy this vagueness in children by making them take down and get up notes of a given lesson, but we accomplish little. The mind appears to have an outer court into which matter can be taken and expelled. This is this brain science that I love that she includes, without ever having to enter the inner place where personality dwells. Here we have a secret of learning by rote, of purely mechanical exercise, of which no satisfactory account has been given, but which leaves the patient or pupil unaffected. So that rote learning, I'm going to learn this, I'm going to take a test, and I'm going to forget it. I'm going to learn, I'm going to take a test and forget it. All of that's happening in that outer court of the brain. But we want this to become permanent knowledge. We want them to have a permanent record of that. And so, her methods use that. Now there is a natural provision against this mere skimming. Give the children the sort of knowledge that they are fitted to assimilate, served in a literary medium, and they will pay great attention. So she's saying we can get beyond this. We can move that knowledge from this outer court into the inner court by giving them living books, that literary medium that she talks about. What's going to happen next, though? A clever questionnaire. So after they've read these living books, how are we going to make that knowledge permanent? Are we going to give them a questionnaire? I bet you can guess what she's going to say. She says questions as Dr. Johnson told us, are an intrusion and a bore. But we have a word of ancient wisdom for our guidance. The mind can know nothing except what it can express in the form of an answer put to a question by the mind. Observe, not a question by an outsider, not a question the teacher came up with or a question from a textbook that the textbook writers came up with, a question the mind puts to itself. And then she goes on to give an example of someone who's doing that. And then she says, attention will go halt all its days if we accustom it to a crutch. So where we're allowing students to read things through multiple times. So like I gave you an example with the ACT questions, a lot of what students do in school, and when I taught school, we use this, they're given a passage to read and then they're given questions about the passage. But they go, we teach them, this is the skill that we teach them, is in order to answer the question, go back and look at the text and read it again to try to find your answer. So we're teaching them not to pay attention the first time they read it. We're teaching them, we're conditioning them that I can go back and if I really need to find it, well, first of all, I'm going to wait and find out what I need to find, what the teacher, what the people think's important, and then I'll go back and find it. So the first time is just a real casual reading, and then, oh, she wants me to find out about Andrew Jackson's campaign strategies. Well, now I'm going to go back and I'm going to do that detailed reading. So we're conditioning them not to pay attention, actually. So Patricia, I see you have a question. Just take 1 second. I'll be right there. But we don't want to do that. We want to teach them to pay attention the first time they read something. That's part of the Charlotte Mason method from day one with just those little bitties, right? Well, I'm going to read this to you once, and I want you to pay attention because you're not going to get to hear it again. She says, as teachers, we offend deeply in this matter. We think that we shall be heard for much speaking, and we repeat and enforce and explain and illustrate, not altogether because we love the sound of our own voices. She's so funny sometimes. She just cracks me up. She's saying, as teachers, we talk a lot, we explain, we repeat ourselves, we give more illustrations if the kids aren't understanding. And is it because we just love to hear ourselves talk? I don't know. I like to talk, so maybe that's why I became a teacher. I'm not sure. But we deprecate knowledge, and this is really, I mean, she doesn't mince words sometimes. We deprecate children. We do not understand that the mind and knowledge are two members of a ball and socket, each of them irrelevant without the other. So, yeah, she's pretty strong about what she thinks about teachers explaining things over and over and over. Patricia, that's how it was when you were in school. Yeah, I mean, that's how totally it was when I was in school. I kind of feel like, have you ever, I'm going to date myself here. Have any of you ever seen the movie Ferris Bueller's Day Off? And the teacher's like, and he asks a question. He talks in a monotone like this. And then he's like, ask the question. And he's like, anyone? Anyone? Or like Charlie Brown's teacher, where it's like, you know, I don't know what like Charlie Brown's teacher's ever saying, right? It's just these like words, you know, and we're teaching them not to pay attention. And so again, those habits are the same. So what are we giving them in high school? And I'll get your question 1 second, honey. We follow the timetables still, the short lessons to increase the habit of attention. That's still a vital goal. Okay, good, Patricia. I'm glad I'm not the only one who's seen Ferris Bueller's Day Off. We give them a wide and generous feast. We're still exposing them to art and music. We're exposing them to a variety of thinkers. That generous feast doesn't go away. We're using literary sources. So as much as possible, the books that we use are still, they're living books. They're written in literary form. They're written by authors who are passionate about their subject. We're putting our child's mind in contact with the great minds of people who have written great things. We still use narration as the primary method in high school, where she talks about that's what it's, we learn by retelling. And that's what makes those permanent imprints in our brain. So that doesn't go away. It changes slightly. So that's something to consider. But narration is still the primary method. We're not going to give them a bunch of workbooks now to prove that they are learning what they need to learn. It's still narration. We don't stunt the growth of ideas through questioning and lecturing. And this is a big one. And I won't read the quotes, but she talks a lot about this, that through living books, our children are giving these ideas that are going to take root and grow and connect with other ideas in their minds. But we can cut that process short with a bunch of questions about what they just read or about a big lecture. Now, that doesn't mean in high school we can't have a discussion, right? But they have to narrate first. That narration is what's permanent, making that idea permanent. And then we can have a discussion about the book or the topic or whatever. But again, it's not lecturing, it's a discussion. There's a difference. And that we're still respecting the child as a person. So I think in high school, it's important to remember what the role of a teacher is. That doesn't change either. And so it says, this is on page 261, I'm still in volume 6. Treat children in this reasonable way, mind to mind, not so much the mind of the teacher to that of a child. That would be undue influence. But put them the minds of thinkers who meet the child, mind to mind in their books. Teachers, okay, here's the teacher's job, performing the grateful office of presenting the one enthusiastic mind to the other. Here, I'm going to put you in contact with Winston Churchill. Here, I'm going to put you in contact with Harper Lee. I'm going to put you in contact with, who else are we reading? Paul Johnson. I'm going to put you in contact with Shakespeare, okay? I'm going to move out of the picture here. My job is to make this feast for you. It's your job to eat and assimilate what you need to know. So that doesn't change either. So let me see what Patricia's question was, and then I'm probably going to stop here for today because I've already been talking for 50 minutes. Oh my goodness. Maybe I just like the sound of my own voice. Maybe I'm like Charlotte Mason. And I don't want to lecture, and I don't want you to not pay attention either. So I will stop for today, and I will do another. I have 3 more points, so I will do those a different day. But where was I going? Oh, I was going to answer Patricia's question. Okay. If you can you talk about math? I'm struggling between doing math in a Charlotte Mason way, which she seems to like, and possibly finding something to catch her up. Math is not her forte. She's a reader. Yeah, so math is not my forte, or my oldest forte, like I said on her SATs. And my daughter that's going to 10th grade does really well in math, but it's not her favorite, but she does well in it. And I do use the Charlotte Mason method of math. I started that with my little ones. But with my older students, there really wasn't much out there in terms of teaching math with this method. And so they used Saxon. Very, very, very traditional math. And did well on it. And then in middle school, I couldn't keep up with them. And so I started outsourcing math. So both of my teenagers take math with somebody else, praise Jesus, and they use, kind of traditional math textbooks as well. But they both did Algebra 1 in 8th grade, and then Algebra 2, and then Geometry. And then, I kind of leave it up to them. My one daughter will take Trig at the community college next year as her 4th math class. And then my 10th grader, she said she wanted to do pre-calc. So I kind of left that 4th math class up to them of what they wanted to do. But I mean, I don't use the Charlotte Mason math method in high school. That it sounds very lovely. I'm sure they would get a lot out of it. But that's just way overwhelmed, and it wasn't something we had done for them. So from the beginning, they've had kind of traditional math as well. So I'm going to stop for today, and then I'll work on those another points probably tomorrow. So if you have a question though about anything I said so far, I don't want to just keep plowing through. And if you were like, I didn't understand that point or what you were talking about or anything like that. So, so just to summarize here, give you my little narration for today. I talked about how a Charlotte Mason education in high school is certainly rigorous enough, that our goal of educating our children at home, not just in high school, but all the way through, is that they will have a love of knowledge, that they will have a large room, a store of living ideas that they can draw from for their entire life, no matter what path they go on, that we're preparing them for life and not for earning a living. That the Charlotte Mason methods don't change when you get to high school, that you're still following her principles, that the narration might change, and that's what I'll talk about in our next video, and how to do that with a high schooler and some of the more practical things, but the overall philosophy does not change, and the overall general principles don't change as well. So if anyone has a question, I will wait a second. And then if not, I will come back on another day. And the other things that I wanted to talk about, like I said, were narration, literary analysis. That becomes people ask about that a lot in high school. What to do if your child's narrations in high school aren't living up to your expectations, or how to get those narrations a little bit more solid. So that's what I will talk about next time. So thanks for watching. I hope that this just gave you a little bit of insight and a little bit of inspiration for how to homeschool in high school with the Charlotte Mason method. And then in the next video, I'll go into some more practical details. So I'm going to go back through. If you have a question, you could leave it in the comments. If you want to share this with someone who you think might be interested in that as well, they can watch it back from the beginning. And then I'll put some links in here to some of the things that I referenced if I can remember them all. But if there's something I forget, please let me know. So anyway, I hope you all have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.